Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together.
I'll join the team, be an X-Man.
We are the future, Charles, not them.
What do you think, I'm stupid? You and I are not so different.
You can't keep denying what you are, man.
Because I'm the best there is at what I do.
You, me, we're exceptional. The power of the sun in the palm of my hand. I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero.
Plague, war, famine, morality doesn't even enter into it.
I've heard these arguments before.
Think about it, hero!
You are watching Move, Throw, a Marvel Crisis Protocol experience. I am Charles, also known as Omnis, one of your experiences, and then I'm here with Danny, the Optic Devastation, your favorite experience.
Ooh, it's just like a smooth word for us now. Like we should have that like just written in the background of all of our emblems here. So yeah, it's been a good week, a good weekend, right? See how things go.
Well, we're gonna warm up with what do you do when the gaming plans don't work out quite right. And so, Danny, I want to kick it over to you since you didn't get to spend the weekend exactly the way you planned.
No. So after our last record and everything, so I had been feeling well earlier in the week, and it turned out the rest of the family ended up getting sick. So it was like they were sort of like halfway through, and it was like I could have left and still played on Saturday, but it was like unsure how they would feel and everything, and I felt bad for leaving them on their own, right? Bad position to leave them in. So I dropped out on Friday, and we had one of our locals, Rocky, filled in. Graciously, so thank you, Rocky, for that. I know everyone at the event had a lot of fun, so I'm very excited for everyone. They got to play and everything. We had 4 teams, so we were able to go through and play multiple rounds, which is good, for the first time event and everything. So I was happy for them. It's very unfortunate for me because I was very excited to play because it really changes my whole schedule of X-Men now, and where things go, right? So it's like how to deal with those feelings. Because I really had been thinking about Asgard now, but I also want to stick to my whole thing of getting badges, right, for every affiliation. It's not that playing X-Men is unfun or anything. Yeah. I think this might just put the timeline into like later spring, like after Adepticon now. So,
so there's kind of 2 parts to this, right? So if I think about it from my perspective, I'm a very motivation, like goal-focused person. And so I get very fired up and I'm like, yes, this is the event that I'm planning for and I'm practicing for. And I definitely build it up and it's kind of this escalating experience. So when all of a sudden I'm like building all the way up and then I just don't get to do the thing that I'm working towards, I don't know. I don't always handle it well. But on the flip side, so on the flip side, I've accepted that you just have to make hard decisions with your time. You can't, I'm a super extrovert, but I still can't handle everything. I've got to make decisions when it's like, I don't have the mental bandwidth for this. And so making the call to just be like, even though I would love to do something, sometimes you just can't, you cannot do everything. And so
you simply can't do everything. Yeah, that is very true. Yeah.
But how was it, obviously you love your family. You're going to take care of it.
Yeah. In this particular situation, I think what helps is that it was for my family stuff. Like there's situations where things go awry, right? Like just because we had a couple weeks ago, I couldn't go to the gaming event because the car broke down. Like I was having trouble starting stuff, and it's completely derailed my evening in terms of what I was trying to do. And now it's I got to deal with this whole situation that I didn't plan on dealing with and spending a bunch of money. I was like, okay, well, let's figure out what we need to do and everything. And so this time, it was I was on the fence. I sort of thought about it this way, that I could have played and it probably would have been fun and it probably would have been okay, but I would have felt a little guilty, right? And then now what would have happened to me is that I would have put so much pressure on these games because now it's now I have to do well because I'm I've left my family. right?
Yes,
In like the situation now, it's like if I don't do well and I just fall apart, now it's like not only have I left them, I also did poorly. So it's like, now what are you really doing here?
Yeah. Now you're like, did I just like waste this whole thing? You know,
Yes.
they took care of me during the week and then I abandoned them and then I just totally shit the bed anyway. And you might be recovering from the illness to begin with, right? So you might not even be 100% yet. You might be 80, 85%. So you're like, you know, should I still kind of like recover and let myself get back to 100% before committing to the event?
Yeah, it's a lot of mental things to like process, but ultimately, like, you should make decisions that's best for you, right?
Yeah.
But I think in the long run, spending time with your family is always good.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, just what's doing the best for you, your family, your mental health is, you know, is always important. And I think we've all been in situations where we've pushed the envelope one notch and tried to do one thing more than what we could, you know, reasonably handle or reasonably had money for or reasonably, you know, just could make work for whatever reason. You just push the envelope one step too far, and that's how you hit burnout. That's how you damage relationships. That's how you know, you kind of deprive yourself from joy of all of it. But plus side is we do get you playing X-Men a little bit longer because you need a new conclusion. So do you have a new like final event in mind? Do you need a final event to close out
I don't
an experience
have to.
that's kind of
I mean, I've been trying to align it to events, but like they don't necessarily have to be like regional. I guess I feel like Mox qualifiers. It just so happens like if you do it once a quarter, like there's always something at the end of the quarter. So I hadn't really thought about that part. Like originally we were to play in this, and then it was probably like a month, at least 1 or 2 monthlies before Adepticon, and that's like the run up of games. Now this sort of changes the math on games I would need to play.
Well, now you're
I guess I can play a DTS, right? Yeah.
Well, I was thinking you're going to probably play X-Men now at Adepticon, right? Where maybe you would have switched.
Before I would want to switch over. Sorry, I meant CarCon. So it would have been like Team Tournament, CarCon, and like 1 or 2 other events.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And that would have been enough. So now it's like, because here's the actual problem if you think about it. If I try to grind tournament games between now and before Adepticon, so I switch factions, now I have a very truncated period of time to try to switch affiliations and then grind games and get to a point where I feel very comfortable, where I just played probably like 50, 60 games of another affiliation. It's like, well, should I play the thing I'm comfortable with at a big event? Like, I don't, like, what do you do? What's going on?
Yeah, definitely shifts that up a notch. So, yeah, you definitely have CarlCon right around the corner, so you could kind of dig into that one and have that be the final X-Men run. But that is a pretty short window to start preparing for Adepticon. But on that note, here, let me tell my weekend, my Friday not going the way that I wanted it to plan. I had taken Friday off, and so that I could, and I was meeting up with someone. I'm like, going to record games. I had picked up a second GoPro camera, and the whole plan is that I'm going to record some games with a dual camera setup. And I'm getting kind of excited just to like see how it all goes. I got up, I got everything organized, made sure I had all the models for all the different lists. Everything's packed up, terrain's packed up, made myself a nice breakfast, like English muffins, scrambled eggs, bacon. I'm feeling good. But in the back of my head, I'm feeling that I don't have something. And this is just whenever I change up the setup in some way, that there's something that slips my mind. And I'm just having that feeling the whole time that there's a thing. And at one point I thought it was the mount for the other camera because I didn't remember putting it in my bag, but I had put it in the bag like right away. Like basically I got it, put it in the bag with the cameras and stuff. So I'm like, oh no, that's there. I'm like, maybe that's the thing. Maybe I figured it out. Get there, setting everything up. At the very last step of setting up the second GoPro and realize I left the little adapter that connects the mount to the GoPro. It's like a $2 piece of plastic.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then I immediately do like a $50 Lyft ride to go get it and come back. And so I spend $50 on what's a little $2 thing to test out.
Yes.
So that was my things not quite going well. But the first game, which will be out before this podcast comes out, was Sentinels versus X-Men, and was against Cyclops. And right as we were kind of locking things in, I was like, oh, hey, I do have Spectrum with me. I think Spectrum would be kind of cool in Cyclops. Do you want to splash Spectrum? And Brett was like, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do it. And holy shit, that was frustrating to play against. It was really kind of turning the whole thing on, where it was like Cable teleports forward, shoots, gives power to Spectrum. Spectrum then enhances his second die, and then he passes power to someone else. And it was like, oh no, this whole thing is singing in a way that I'm uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, is Spectrum on your radar to try in Cyclops? Have you tried it already? What are your thoughts there?
I have not messed with Spectrum as like an include, right? My list has been very tight up to this point, but when I think about it, like honestly, like I have this sort of like switch of a very wide X-Men team that I've yet to actually use or like need in a situation.
A flex that sort of
that never
exist.
Actually.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, like, well, do you sort of cannibalize that, just have like bigger pieces in different configurations, and have, take 2 5s instead? And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to bring in just different 5s in situations and blow stuff up, and go super aggressive and trying to generate power, right? And like beams and all sorts of stuff, area attacks, right? Because the more attacks, the more Cyclops power you can generate. I guess I hadn't really committed to how aggressive I wanted to be. Is what it comes down to, and how much I really want to punch. I've been slowly moving towards this way. But because of the team tournament, one of the changes actually was putting Zemo in the list.
Yes.
And Zemo sort of just like turns half the list on into guns. And so it's like, well, Zemo and Spectrum instead of like Shang-Chi is like, that could work. And then you just have like lots and lots of triggers and things happening all over the place, and everyone's just like blasting the world away. It's like, man, it's like withering gunfire where everything just like dies before it even gets to you.
You could just drop Shang-Chi for Spectrum.
Yeah, that's part of the question here.
I think she turns on, like, I've seen people like some of the Muse guys, right, had said that they felt like Spectrum might be broken. And I don't think in a normal list she pushes the envelope, right? I think it has to be kind of her leadership, or Xavier or Cyclops, and then maybe Inhumans or like Cap 1. It really has to be a leadership that amplifies her own power generation, because otherwise she's just not doing it enough. But I think she could be a really powerful splash in Xavier or in Cyclops. And this was just one game, right? So it might not work on all of the different layouts.
She's a long mover?
She's a long mover. She's a long mover with a beam 4.
Yeah, I was like...
So she does have other interesting roles, she does cool stuff. So you have not tried it yet, and so you're just kind of starting to absorb the like, hey, is this a thing that I should be considering?
Yeah. So essentially, she goes down this whole idea of just like boosting up attacks and going crazy here, and just trying to explode stuff before it even like gets near me. Because remember, much earlier I talked about the Black Bolt like having another range 4 gun and just going to Pound Town and just shooting everything for anything it's close. For a while, I was thinking about Silver Sable. And just trying to shoot things as they're coming up. But at this point, I was using Psylocke and using her Sonic Construct, so like re-rolling the beam. I was like, well, adding dice is pretty good to the beam and blowing stuff up. And more dice, I mean, it's more likely for his builder to trigger the speed of sight, which is really the trigger you want on that first one. And that being more consistent would be good, which is what I noticed with Zemo, was that became more consistent over time. Instead of being like once or twice a game, it became like 3 or 4 times a game.
All the
which just meant there's more triggers.
Together.
So I was kind of going down this road, but like I've been having so much fun with Emma.
Yeah.
That I've been revolving the game plan of just displacement and throwing stuff around. And the thing the one problem I have with Rambeau here is that she's a 3 physical, and she can die.
100%. Yeah. The wild blanking attack dice is sweet, but I will say that she has bit the dust in multiple games for me.
I do have Colossus, so there is a situation where we can dive in and make this happen. It just it comes down to the situation of, like, how good of a fighter do I think I am here?
Yes.
Right? Like, am I so committed to the fight plan that now I think I can outfight Apocalypse? Right? It's like going down this road of trying to like blow people away, or I'm able to like get rid of enough of his forces before he can pull lots of tricks. That's like, yeah, he's doing something, but at least it's one model and I can try to mitigate that, like with Colossus and doing other stuff. Part of the problem is that I was moving towards more X-Men, not away from X-Men, because of Emma. And it's actually because of Headmistress. And
because
that card
is so good.
Yeah, can get so ridiculous on certain activations. Like using it early to pull like round one attacks, or doing it round 2 and 3 and be like, actually, I'm going to just pull people out of the way and just completely ignore you and reposition around the game.
Okay, side question for you.
Sure.
I had been considering Cable as well in Lys and in Cyclops because he impressed me, right, as we were going into WTC in 2024, but was very focused on playing X-Force. But if we go back and you listen to the discussions at that time, I was definitely saying, I'm like, this guy feels splashable now. And he was never really, prior to that, he really wasn't a character that like X-Men players were utilizing in a big way. And I'm curious, did Cable end up being a part of your testing at all for Cyclops?
He is still in the father-son idea. And that was like the other pivot I had from the Rogue Psylocke. And so it come down to this pivot point, and I was going to use the team turn to sort of decide some of this. And I guess we're going to be doing it live for CarlCon here, is what sort of attacks do I want here? Because I noticed for a while Psylocke wasn't doing enough, and really what ended up happening is that she ended up dying too quickly. Like she'd go in, she'd fight someone, and then someone else would come in and just go in and dive on her, and like, oh, that's as bad.
Yeah. Well, so the other synergy, right, is that especially if we're talking about a list with Spectrum, her rolling 5 or 6 defense dice because of Cable really like also amplifies her defenses. So that's where I was like, man, the Cyclops leadership is really what both of them want. Cable's kind of a perfect sort of character to be moving, like he's going to place himself either before or after shooting so that he could be within the range 5, of different characters. He's long enough range that he's got some bandwidth to play around with like, oh, I want to be over in this spot so that I'm within range 5 of these guys and range 3 of this. You have that flexibility because of his action economy, and then has a reasonable chance of doing damage, and then can also protect characters like Spectrum by giving Spectrum bonus dice, and then also just does absolutely ridiculous shit when he's rolling 7 dice reroll 2.
Yes. So I love these plans because they very much live the dream plans. Ultimately, the problem with this game plan is the amount of power it requires any one turn. And it's so variable how much power you're going to have to be like, hey, do I have enough power to use the shields? Well, now I need to activate Cable to get power back on him. But I also need Spectrum to have power on her if I want to add dice. So you start having order of activation problems, what I've noticed. Where right now I have like a bunch of independent pieces.
Like I said, this was just one game, but it was like everything was flowing. But I mean, part of it is we all know that like Cyclops, if the first attack does well, right, then the whole train goes on, right? If if Cable slides forwards, shoots, does damage, and then boom, passes a power to Spectrum, and then Spectrum gives him bonus dice. So now he's rolling 7 dice, reroll 2. And then he builds up power. So now he's got power for shields, and then you're protecting Spectrum, and, when all of these things start clicking. But I still think functionally the idea of Cable and Spectrum being like a pod on one part of the table works reasonably well. And like whether Cyclops is over there or Cyclops is on another part of the board, I think my gut is that there's something there.
Yeah, I think this is still a good list, which is Cable, Cyclops, Colossus, Spectrum at 17. Right? Like a very solid, hey, you've got bodyguards, you got lots of guns, you're going in, right? Lots and lots of guns, right? You're just blowing everything away.
My concern was the threat levels was my biggest concern with it.
Like, it felt like
the economy works, but I was like, at 17, you really have to take another 4 then. And so that means you're probably taking maybe like a tanky boy like Colossus or something to hold objectives. If they had a grunt character, right? If I was like taking Fury in that other slot, I would feel very good about this, right? Because I'm like, oh, okay, Nick is just going to be my extract holder. And then Cyclops and then Cable and Spectrum go and get work done. And I would be totally fine with that. But there's obviously some concern there that, do you round out is there a 4th threat that perfectly rounds out that team? And that's where I think it gets really complicated. And it was like, well, then is Cable just like a slightly higher threat game? Like at 18 plus, it starts to be like a lot more manageable. And so maybe that like has to be a Psylocke or a Nightcrawler or something like that at 17 is possibly the situation. But I was not high on Cyclops post changes. He was one of the first things I put on the table. I did not like it. I found it immediately wasn't working. But after the game, which everybody gets to watch, which is first one with dual camera, I was like, damn, this is making me want to play Cyclops, Cable, and Spectrum together. And so it would be very funny if we're both like playing Cyclops lists. But I think there's also the question. I do think there's a world where Spectrum Xavier. So the problem with Spectrum Xavier is that you then have like 8 threat without action economy, which is a little rough, but you get a more controllable situation, right? Cable slides forward, immediately gives the power to Spectrum. So the whole thing is turning on right away. And so you have some of that stuff clicking like instantaneously. And then Cable and Xavier can do rerolls during other characters' turns to, also manipulate that power economy. But then it's a question of does Xavier and Spectrum together without action economy like hold back the list? So part of me was like, maybe I try that. I've never gotten that many games in with Xavier. I could try that if you were kind of still leaning Cyclops. We're not playing like the exact same thing.
A bit literal, yeah. There are some questions there.
Yeah.
Right, and having fun with that. It is also a question of like, do I just, to keep it fresh, switch leaders at some point and try something else? So lots of thoughts to have about this.
But all right, before we get into the main topic, I want to tell you like slight spoiler. So this video will come out the following week after this episode. I want to tell you, so the game that's coming out next week came down to a total party KO with, at a point, both of us have one character left on the table. Both have been Dages already. So we both have one character left. And so I don't want to spoil the outcome, but it comes all the way down to both of us with one character left. Okay. And actually ends up in a total party KO before we score out.
Well, that feels like the way that really happens is because someone needs to essentially kill to win, and they fail at kill.
Yeah, it definitely came down to oh shit, yeah, do we somebody has to get a kill to finish things off. But yeah, it wasn't even like we were playing the new Secure and Spider Infected. So actually a lot of extracts. But we just ended up with a round where I think 4 extracts were on the ground. Yeah. Just because of people being dazed, people, then the person who did a daze couldn't pick up because they were holding one, and then they get dazed like right after. Like it was just how things mathed out that it came down to that. And I just haven't had that. I'm not sure I've ever had that crazy of a game personally, where it's like, all right, we're starting the round. Both of us have one character, and it's also a situation where neither character's like a Hulk or something, right? So it's not like, oh, I've got Black Widow, you've got Hulk. We know how this is gonna, come out.
Down, yeah.
This is like, a 3 threat versus a 4 threat. It's something like very manageable. We're like, holy crap, how is this gonna go?
Yes. So, let's put you in a weird situation. I've been close, and I've been in situations where I've gotten like tabled. Right, where I had 2 models left, they had 1, and they had AoE damage or something. I was like, oh, well, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like a duel.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I haven't recorded commentary for that game yet. I still got editing work to do on that one. I think that one's going to be a better one for showcasing the second camera. And so got some editing time to take on it, but it's going to be interesting to rewatch it. Cause, that was, kind of a fairly epic conclusion. But
it is anyway good content, right? So really matters.
good content. It's always like when you start recording videos, every once in a while you'll play games that are not being recorded, and it always sucks when you play a game and you're like, damn, that game was fucking epic. Why wasn't I recording that one? Right? It's totally different when you record one and you're like, well, this game was meh. I just won't use the footage. That's fine. But when you have the ability to record and then you don't record and it's an amazing game, you're like, oh man, did I drop the ball on that one? But yeah. All right, well, let's shift to our main topic. So just something, I don't know if you were thinking about this as much as I was, but after this last wave of characters, and it feels like we're seeing more characters who are 4-cost characters, or possibly even more, that have 4 dice attacks on them, and they're doing kind of creative things with them, which made me want to go back and be like, well, what's the evolution of the 4 dice attack? And so just surface level question for you, Danny, to start things off. Do you feel like 4 dice attacks have evolved considerably, or are you like, yeah, the 4 dice world is relatively similar to where it was in the beginning?
No, they're pretty different from each other. A lot of 4 dice attacks now have very fancy triggers.
Yeah.
And have a lot of interesting abilities tied to them. The one that makes me the most mad will always be the stupid bow on Angela of the Pursuit. Always make me mad.
Oh, that's a 5 dice attack, though. She doesn't have a 4 dice. Yeah, she's still a 5.
Or is it? Oh, is it Psylocke that has her bow?
Her bow is a 4. Yeah, she's her and Blade. They have the Wild Pursuit. But I would have agreed with you before I started researching this. I was like, man, they've super evolved. But then when I go back and I tried to prove myself right with facts, I was like, wait a second, that's not really the case. If you go back to the first core set, sure, 2-threat Black Widow has boring 4 dice attacks. She's got a 4 dice attack that's not even a gainer. But then you've got Carol, right, who has a 4 dice reroll any gainer. Right? Then you've got Doc Ock, 4 dice, wild count 2. You had Captain America. I'm pretty sure his shield started off at a 4 dice. I believe it was not a gainer at the beginning, but it did ignore cover and line of sight. Yeah, it was not a gainer, but I believe it also wasn't 5 dice originally. I believe it was just a 4 dice attack. And you still have Spider-Man with impact webbing, gainer, wild push, right? And so I was like, wow, those are all really great examples of 4 dice attacks with some interesting creativity mixed in there, right? But the problem is that none of those characters really were ever super popular, right? Spider-Man was maligned from the beginning. Carol always had like power issues of really hitting the key amounts that she needed. And then Doc Ock had a little bit of flair, but it was more for being a 3-cost with a throw. And so even though there were like interesting 4-dice attacks, they just weren't on characters that were like heavily featured in like the overarching meta.
So do they matter then?
Yeah, do they? But the characters that had me thinking about this topic was like, say, Echo and Prowler, where I was just really enjoying the 4-dice, range 4, gainer, enemy cannot modify their defense dice, right? Like, what a solid, great 4-dice attack. I had to do that right where you're going to sneeze. I wanted to pass it over to you. But like, is that kind of like epitome of just like cool 4-dice attack for you?
I think when I think of 4-dice attack, honestly, I think of the Bucky change every time. And I think of like rapid fire. Like when I think of 4-dice attacks that really stood out to me, that were like ubiquitous for a while, there was like Mystique. Right, it was Mystique for a long time was ubiquitous. You had Domino, right? You have Bucky, and I was like, yeah, those are the attacks I think of when I think of 4-dice attacks.
Well, so I do wanted to like shout that out because like I remember when Black Widow Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, and it was like rapid fire, no trigger. Was like what? Like, and we were doing the math, and it's like this is hitting like a 6-dice attack. Right. Obviously, against invulnerable characters, you know, it kind of like leans down. But against just average characters, I was like, this is really good. And then I think they realized pretty quickly that you couldn't just have like unlimited rapid fire, or not unlimited, but like guaranteed rapid fire. And then you started seeing the characters that were hit rapid fire, you know, like Mystique is a hit rapid fire, right? She's not a guaranteed. Yeah.
So it is Dominus.
Yeah. Same as Domino's. Like Domino came a little bit further down the road.
Is it Sin or is it Viper that has a rapid fire?
Sin has the rapid fire. Yeah. Viper does have like the generic. I actually kind of wanted to talk about those for a minute. So Viper, Mordo, Ancient One kind of came out in a relatively similar time period, which is like kind of like the 4-dice attack that I like the least, which is like, hey, let's give these characters the range 3, like 1-die gainer, and then it adds status effects. And that always felt like the most bland, just like suboptimal version of the 4-dice attack, where it's like, well, so now when you spike, you create weird power economics issues, and then like it's not like impact webbing where you get to push, you're just like poisoning them or something. And those felt like they kind of were like, yeah,
it's like that opportunity costs. A lot of time was like, I feel like there should be something it feels like there should something be doing that gives you better tempo than just like randomly poisoning or randomly stunning a single character. And even then, like, it's not a guarantee, it's not a wild of 4-dice, which is like not great odds. It's not even technically in your favor, right? So it's like, well, it's like an attack opportunity. You're doing it because you're not really expecting it to do a ton. You're probably just doing it to gain the power, honestly. And anything that happens after that is nice to have. But I think, to your point, they sort of like realize that 4-dice should do something a little more interesting around this time.
Yeah. Then when that first wave of errata, then we get the Bucky, and you have a range 5 4-dice hit for rapid fire on a range 5 attack that is not a gainer. So you're also just like, every time you spike, you're building power. Obviously that gets nerfed, and it's like, it can't be like that good. Like that was a little too devastating, because he also had just such great ways of like utilizing that power. But so side thought, whenever I have a character with a 5-dice attack and they get shocked, God, do I hate the idea of making the 4-dice attack. Are you in the similar boat there, or you're like, I just roll it?
It really depends. I've rolled those attacks.
Yeah.
But the problem is like the amount of damage you get is so truncated with 4 dice versus 5 dice. It usually comes down as a crit more than anything. But it's like if a character has like 1 or 2 health left, and it's like, okay, well, shaking the shock and going for 1 5 dice attack is kind of bad. So 2 4 dice attacks, I probably do 1 or 2 damage and kill them.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go for it. But the problem is like the longer you have shock, the worse it is.
Exactly. That was what I was just going to say. Like, okay, we know the math is that 2 4 dice attacks does generally outdamage a 5 dice attack, right? Like, we know that the math usually works out that way. But I think as soon as I think we're probably in the realm, I don't know the exact math off the top of my head, but 2 5 dice attacks might outdamage or match 3 4 dice attacks. So that's where it's like, and especially if you're going 3 5 dice versus 4 4 dice attacks, you are almost certainly going to get more out of the 5 dice attacks, I believe is how that math works out. And so the shock can be shaking the shock may not be optimal in that turn, but it definitely can help you down the road. But then God, does it feel bad if you shake shock, make 1 5 dice attack, and then get re-shocked?
Correct. Or you just get dazed afterward. So it really depends on, I would say, like the order of activation. Like if you think the character's relatively safe, where they can shake the shock, make an attack, and then potentially to activate at the top of the next round.
Yeah.
Right. And go through that, cool. But if they have some damage on them, I was like, well, I might just let them die and see what happens right away. But 2, there's no real incentive to attack early, because if the attack is blunted, there's no world. But if I keep the opportunity of this spike attack could spike, it is the threat of the spike that they still have to contend with and think about, versus the reality of 4 dice attack, which may or may not do anything.
Truth. Anyway, I wanted to bring up shock because I'm just like kind of putting into perspective how we in our gut and like in our hearts feel about 4 dice attacks. But then in practice, like when I've been playing Prowler, I found in a lot of games, I was using his 4 dice attack more often than I was using his 5 dice attack, because I'm like, man, that character has cover. I might as well make the 4 die attack. Right?
Yes.
Or it's like, man, they've got a defensive reroll, and so you start mathing these things out. And so that's where I really appreciate the new creativity with the 4 die attacks is, having stuff like that. Like the no modifying on defense is like, ooh, I got a little longer range, so I could position a little bit better. And I get to deny the fact that they would have cover with this attack. So that's really cool. And so I love that they're exploring this territory of where the 4 die attack should be.
It is 4 die. People learn this with grunts, right? And 4 dice attacks can actually be very deadly. It comes down to volume of fire more than anything, and just random attacks of opportunity. But giving other characters their more interesting abilities on these 4 dice attacks, so it's a little more variable. We see what happens. But having, when you were talking about the card changes, I don't think this is when the Taskmaster change happened. Taskmaster was the second errata. It wasn't the first Bucky.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Wait a second.
Was it the sideways cards, or was Bucky?
No, wait a second. No, Taskmaster. So wasn't Taskmaster?
Because that was
No, I think he inspired the changes. I don't think his card changed. I don't think
because his shield changed. Because I thought he got the gainer on the shield. I thought he had ignore cover and he didn't have gainer, because I thought he got something as well.
Okay.
All the shield throwers got something. Essentially, Sam's the one who didn't get something because everyone got Sam's throw effectively.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he was one of the things where it's like, oh, his is a gainer and Captain America's is not. Yeah, I couldn't quite remember, but yeah.
Maybe he did ignore cover. Like there was something different about his.
I think you're right that it maybe wasn't a gainer initially, and then they're like, we're gonna make all of these gainers.
And so that's where I started noticing 4 dice attacks more. I started using the shield toss characters more. I was playing Sam Adventures for a while, and I really like those. And so I prefer the longer range 4 dice attacks because those are sort of like I'm just tossing these out.
Yeah.
I can like attack, maybe like port backwards, do something cool, and like maybe get something useful. Then I care about the shocks and the stuns and conditions because I'm like, I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe I'm like on a diamond and I'm like, attacking inward into different shapes, and so I'm able to like affect the board from where I'm at. Not that I don't like range 3 attacks. It's just when I think about range 4 attacks, those are like the really opportunity cost what they think about.
Yeah, so like one of the things that I come back to is the grunts having 4 dice attacks.
Yes.
Because like it is so common that the joke is that the grunts will outdamage the parent character. Like
100%.
yeah, like happens so often. And it's just like, and it just feels like you're making these free 4 dice attacks, and you're just like, this nothing like less than 1 threat character is just like, here, take 3 damage, take 4 damage.
They are free.
Yeah, and it just feels like you're these free bonus attacks. Like you're not even spending a tactics card. It's not even a Siege of Darkness. They're just like, yeah, get fucked.
They're just there. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Reposition them wherever you want. You get like can't deal with them. Oh, that's so annoying.
Yeah. And so I would probably say that like an unlimited damage cap 4 die attack probably is too good for a grunt. I think it should have some sort of damage limitation. Like maybe it doesn't have to cap at 1 in the way that like Shuri's attack does, but I think it would not be unreasonable to be like grunts cannot deal more than 2 damage or something like that. I'm not sure we need the grunts having like, I rolled a crit and you rolled no blocks. Take 5. Like, does that really need to happen from a grunt?
It gives like a really fine line here.
Yeah.
Right? Because on one hand, they're not generating power a lot of times for their boss. Like ninjas aren't. Grunts can if they're in range. Like ultra bots don't.
Wait, okay, wait. How about this? What if crits don't explode on grunts? Would that?
Maybe.
Did I break your brain?
No, it's totally fine. It is sort of thinking like what I still wouldn't expect them to do anything, right? All that would really happen is that their damage curve would go down effectively.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, I don't like grunts to begin with. I don't think grunts should be in the game at all. But sure. I think it would be perfectly reasonable for the grunts damage curve to like take a hit.
I guess the question is, how often are they truly like going crazy and doing enough damage that like they're really doing more than like 2 or 3 in the first place? Because like when I think about like what really kills people is when they blink out defense, and then I do 2 or 3 damage, and I do like twice, and that's really what gets people, right?
But does that really need to be happening ever? That's really my point. Like,
yes. I guess the counter argument, right, because I love grunts here, is that there's an opportunity of moving grunts. Like, it's being able to attack twice. It's like, are they set up in a way you can kill the boss first, they killing it to activate and get rid of them? Like, and really, there's only a couple of grunts. And like, when I really think about this, are they really going to make more grunts at this point? Like, going forward, are we kind of like set here for a period of time? Because there aren't that many characters that bring other people with them.
Yes. And I mean, things are probably fine, but I think we can all agree that when you're taking the attacks from grunts, you're like, God, this feels like way more damage than this grunt should reasonably be able to do. And that's where I'm comparing the perspective of like, we hate making 4 die attacks when we're shocked, but we absolutely hate being attacked by a grunt. Like, these things both exist in the same universe.
Part of the not being like shot by grunts is the fact that the boss is also shooting you, right?
Yes.
So it's like a combination factor coming in here. Also, I'm not even like necessarily against grunts and buzzing their damage. I'm just sort of thinking about like what would this long term look like? Because like the other one would be like the Hydra grunts, right? Where they're shooting you from downtown and you get all sad. Because I was thinking of their ability.
Yeah. But then 4 dice reroll any.
And I was thinking of their sort of like suicide attack, right? Where they go and shoot and everything. I was like, would it be more like that? Would it be more like if they do too much damage at hurting themselves?
Yeah.
Right? Like they're going too crazy in the power. So I guess other ways to think about it here.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the world where you could just be like, grunts can only make 1 attack action.
That is true.
Could
Yeah,
also
a lot
be.
of games handle it that way.
Yes.
So they're always kind of like moving around and using more for that positional piece.
But, and so this is just like the whole range of our feelings on 4 threats or like 4 dice attacks.
Yes.
And, Spectrum's beam has been impressing me. First glance, you're like, she's got a 6 die attack. Like, how often are you going to beam? But 4 dice, beam 4, energy typed with reroll all is a surprisingly good attack. And
Very, very good.
I don't know. Have you played against her much yet?
I've played one game against her, and she's a very interesting character. When I was looking up real quick, I was thinking of Pyro and Jim Hammond, Human Torch. And they have their beam 3s and 4 dice.
Yes.
And they have conditionals. And so it's like the shorter beam, the beam 3s, and even though they're 4 dice, is that they can generate so many attacks that their potential spike world is going to go crazy here. And they both have stuff that they want to be hitting multiple characters anyway, the trigger, all sorts of fun abilities. So I think they're very interesting attacks. And they force you into positions where they're also tied to characters who aren't like the toughest characters. I've noticed they've started doing that with some of these like really good 4 dice attacks, is trying to keep them from going super crazy on really tough characters.
Well, back in the day, Okoye had a range 4 dice energy attack that was a gainer, and she had an offensive reroll. And it turns out that is way too good for a 2 threat.
Too good. Too good.
Which is really funny that we determined that that's way too good for a 2 threat, and we're like, yeah, it's totally fine for Grunts to have 4 dice with a reroll. That's fine. That's totally cool.
Oh, yeah, well, she's 2 threats, obviously.
Yeah. Just fuck Okoye. No, Okoye was busted. But there's definitely been a part of me, like, when you see these attacks and like trying to balance them and do just the right thing, definitely makes me wonder if all the numbers were just doubled, right? If things had double the health, but then you were rolling where a 5 die attack was a 10 die attack. And so you'd have a little bit more customization. You're like, well, should this character have, if you're doubling a 4 die attack, you have more customization of making it 7, 8, or 9 dice. Right? Where you would have more ability to play around with that stuff. Whereas it's like the difference between 3, 4, 5, right, is like really dramatic.
Yes. Yeah,
and
huge
so
graduations of power.
Yeah. So the one that's been on my mind, because I haven't actually played her yet, is Kitty Pryde. And so she's probably going to be the next one that I paint. Because I'm also thinking about her, right, with Spectrum, when she gets to roll 6 die attacks that are like, fuck your crits. Right? Like what are the like? I imagine that her 4 die attack is probably pretty similar to a 5 die attack anyway.
Yes.
Right? Going, your opponent's crits don't count and they don't explode. Right? Like that has got to put the math pretty close to a 5 die attack. And so, yeah, I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah, that's got to be quite good.
Like crits not exploding really changes their defense.
Yeah, I've never played her, so I'm like double checking. I was like, they do not add the results, and they do not get to add dice. Yeah, so it is.
So it's removing a face, right? It's moving a face. Essentially, blanking out crits.
Yeah,
effectively, right?
Yes, and but even better than that, because if it's a martial artist, right, like. Yeah, it's kind of funny because you actually turn a martial artist into just 50-50. But on normal characters, they're now only blocking on 25% of their dice.
Not good.
And then no chance to be adding more. But also, is the ignoring crits like the most forgotten rule in the game?
I think it's one. Only I think less than 5 characters even have this rule. 2, it's one of those things that you don't really think about, right? Because there's so few abilities that affect crits themselves. There's skulls as crits. There's and there's a couple of ways to trigger skulls as crits, and there's basically ignoring crits. That's basically it.
But yeah, it always feels like if you've got a character who interacts with crits like Black Cat, Domino, the going all out card for Spectrum, Hex in general, that feels like the thing that you always have to remind your opponent of. Like, nobody just straight up remembers it.
I'm playing both Black Cat and Domino, and it's reminding people of when they can and cannot reroll.
Yes.
And what is happening in interactions, what's going on with crits. And I think what gets a lot of people when they're playing against those characters is they go in expecting 1 damage, and they go, I'm going to roll like no crits. They're like, oh no. I'm like, correct. Because the dice math completely changes what they're going to do. Or they're no modifying, right, into Black Cat and stuff, where it's like, oh, the combination 2 is like, yeah, this isn't going to work out. Like, no, this isn't going to work out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to swing it back to the 4 dice attacks real quick before we wrap up the episode. So I didn't realize this before we started talking about this, but I think what kind of actually happened, if we talk like the whole history of AMG, I think they were actually pretty creative with the 4 die attacks to begin with, but then put a lot of them on some of the lesser loved characters, or characters that just like were not hitting the table as much. And then 4 die attacks have kind of were evolving, where maybe they were trying to figure out if the 4 die attacks were part of the problem. And then now we've swung back around where I feel like they kind of figured it out. And we just see really interesting 4 dice attacks show up on a variety of models. And I respect that creativity, where it's like, not everybody needs the boring 5 die attack. What if we do 4 dice, but like give them extra flair?
Yes. I think they have the real difference between now and then. Like the earlier powers are basically, like even impact webbing, right? It's still hey, here's a wild trigger and something happens.
Yeah.
Right? Where the newer powers tend to have more conditionals and what's going on and affecting other things. Or they didn't have like beams. At that point, or the beam 3 4 dice attacks and stuff and triggers. So it's like I think they sort of have different ideas or different templates for 4 dice attacks now, and they're applying them in different ways, which I think is interesting, right?
Yep.
Right? It's different ways of looking at the game, giving more options.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to get in there before we wrap the episode, Mr. Optic Devastation Danny?
Yeah, I was trying to think if there were any other like 4 dice. We haven't really talked about range 2 4 dice attacks, like punching range. I guess the question is, do you feel there is a range you don't like with 4 dice attacks? Like, I actually don't like short range 4 dice attacks, because I feel like if I'm that close, I probably have like a 5 or 6 dice attack that I should be using instead.
I can't think of an instance where that exists outside of 2 threats.
Shadow Cat has a 4 dice. Her punch is range 2.
I thought it was. Why did I think it was range 3?
No, her Lockheed is range 3.
Oh, the Lockheed is range 3.
He's also 4 dice.
Yeah, that's where I was getting it crossed in my brain. Yeah, but
she modifies dice and everything, but I think I want to say there's another one.
Yeah, I'm sure there probably is. Range. It's just like there's so few. As we go through it, they don't do it that much.
Oh, it might be Nebula.
Right, but again, like with the 2s, that's totally fine. Yeah. Like Wong obviously has a range 2, 4 dice.
Nebula also has the reroll, so it's like
yeah. Yeah, I was like, is there a 3 that has like just a straight 4 dice at range 2?
I think also the 4 dice attack. But not to get too deep off the point.
Black Cat's got 4
the claw.
4 die pierce. So,
the pierce.
It exists.
Kitty cat claws.
Yeah.
But I think the range 2s tend to have very interesting trigger. Like she has Pierce, right? Pierce and Bleed, I think.
Gambit has a 4 dice range too, but
it's a bow staff.
Yeah, but
does Moon Knight
a little different?
Is his bow staff 4 dice?
Yes.
Yes, I did remember one. I had to think about that one too. Yeah, it's the fun trigger, the stagger trigger. Because like with Moon Knight, you're supposed to be trying to get the extra 2 dice and go for the sick bow. Because I think it also has like reroll all.
Yes.
Reroll any.
Yeah, I think it's reroll any.
I guess what I'm saying is like the range 2 4 dice attacks didn't have cool triggers and a bunch of
definitely need to have special stuff for to make use of a 4 dice range 2. And I feel like they've realized that. So All right. Well, it was fun. Did you enjoy our little 4 dice discussion?
Well, I mean, I always enjoys a conversation.
Oh, but like on a scale of the Omnis and Danny experience.
The scale of 1 to 5. I mean,
this was a 4 out of 10. This was a 4.
Oh, I said
4 dice.
I see where you're going with this. I was taking a serious jokester over here, folks.
Yeah. Well, okay, so it's a 4 on a scale of 1 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So pretty good.
All right. Well, let's close out things there, and we'll just say, remember, nerds. The best way to close out your game is move, and then 4 dice attack, I guess. Later, nerds.
We'll see you next time.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex